So I want to start off tonight. I want to start off talking about number one, brake pads, and number two, winter storage. So I got a nice email from a fella. I think he was from Canada, and he was complaining about his brake squeal, and it sounded just like a nice crystal wine glass, of which I have very few. That whoo that you get when he was braking. So and my daughter complained to me about her brakes, and I know other people have been doing this too. So I answered the fella, and I got a nice note from the MG Owners Club, from Roger Parker, MG Owners Club in England, which defined a lot of stuff that's relevant to them. I'm not sure how much of that is relevant to us, but it all comes down to the brake pads. Once the asbestos came out of the brake pads, then they had to be made with something else. And the something else glazes up more easily than the asbestos did. Once it's glazed, it vibrates. You can get rid of the howling, the screaming, the screeching by taking the brake pads out, scuffing them up with some 100 grit sandpaper. We used to do that just on the floor, put a piece of 100 grit sandpaper on the floor and quick zip, zip, zip the brake pads back and forth, take the glaze off them, and that'll stop the noise, the squealing for a little bit. And then of course they glaze up again. Back in the day with asbestos pads, we had more complaints from women than we did from men, and we attributed to that correctly or incorrectly, to the fact that women braked more carefully and more slowly than guys did. So some of the instructions on some of the brake pads in this article that I got from Roger Parker had to do with how to handle the brake pads when they're first installed. Some were to use it lightly for 50 miles and then really hard for 200 miles. Well, of course, the brake pads aren't, the function of the brake pads isn't mileage, except under normal conditions. So I'm not sure. My suggestion is to maybe go on the web and see if anyone's got any information about, because I don't have the information, about how to handle the brake pads and how to bed them in. You don't want to get super duper race pads, because racing pads are for high speed, dramatic use. And those will cause problems because they don't heat up enough to get the friction. To reduce that vibration, we used to put duct tape on the back of the pads. Take the pads out, clean the back of them off, put a strip or two of duct tape on the back, trim it so there's no way that it can get around the edge of the pad to foul the free movement of the pad. You can also buy goo that you put on the back, and it sort of hardens, gels. There's also shims that you can buy. The Triumph Stag uses the same brake rotor that MGBs use. Their pads are a little bit bigger. I'm not sure if the problem is still the same. Sometimes you can take a hacksaw and cut a slot in the brake pad. If you remember buying the old Mintex, I think it was Mintex pads, they were slotted, just one slot through the middle of them. There's an issue about rotating the caliper pistons correctly to reduce that vibration. There's a lot of tricks out there. It's really frustrating, and I don't have an easy answer. When we get all done with my introduction here, we'll turn it back over to brake pads, and maybe some people have found some ways to bed their brake pads in. One guy I talked to today said his were squealing from the back end. His brake shoes were squealing. Boy, that's really odd. I said, where'd you get them? He goes, I don't know. Anyway, Ferodo pads are still available. F-E-R-O-D-O, Ferodo pads are still available. I think they're handled by Engel Imports in Kalamazoo, Michigan, E-N-G-E-L. And I know that those are the ones that Glenn Lenhard likes from Glenn's MG service in St. Petersburg, Florida. The hotter the car is, the more it squeals. I know that because when I took my MGA Deluxe, which has got Dunlop brakes, but call them Girling brakes, when I had that in Grapevine, Texas, in about 2002, when there was a meet down there, every stop it just squealed. It was so embarrassing. So the brakes worked okay. They just made so much noise, and that was from the ambient temperature. It was, at least it exacerbated the problem, because I've never had the same problem again. Volvos and Triumphs with Girling brakes seem to squeal more than Lockheed brakes. Maybe it was the composition at the time, but all the stuff that the brake pads were made of in the past has changed, and now it's all new composite. So I'm eager to hear from hey, we're at 147. Doug Clark's probably on, he's probably counting, but that's more than we had last week. That's real nice. So anyway, that's that. We'll go back to that in a minute. I'm going to talk about winter storage. Those of you who are north of the Mason-Dixon line and have to put the cars away for fear of ice and snow, the greatest enemy you have, I mean, there's all kinds of enemies, but the greatest enemy you have are those small little furry rodents. And they'll get inside the car and they'll chew the wiring and they'll make mouse nests. If you get one in the heater box, oh my gosh, you can never get rid of it without taking the heater box all apart. So you want to avoid mice. Some people put mothballs, old-fashioned naphthalene mothballs. Don't use the new-fashioned paradichlorobenzene. That's the same smell as the cakes that they used to use in men's urinals. So it's just a chemical smell. It'll remind you of a urinal, and you won't want to drive your car so much. Anyway, sometimes we used to put those in nylons, and I'm not even sure women wear not nylons anymore. But you've got to put them in someplace so they don't roll all around inside the car. And over the course of the winter time, they slowly sublime and leave that mothball, that naphthalene smell on the inside of the trunk and the inside of the underbonnet area inside the car. And that tends to keep the mice from being there. Some people use dryer sheets. I had one guy who said, "Oh my gosh, I found the perfect way to keep mice out of my car." I said, "Tell me, dude, I'm all ears." He said, "I jack my car up on all four, put jack stands underneath each corner, put each jack stand in a big pizza pan, and use motor oil in each of the pizza pans. So what mouse is going to cross the dirty oil to climb up the jack stand to get into the car? Very few, probably none. But that's quite a task. Anyway, mice are your greatest enemies. So if you got things like dog food out in the garage along with the car, it's easy enough to find that dog food deposited deep inside the tailpipe or inside the air cleaners, inside those cutaway sections in the main body that go out to where the front fenders are. You want to change your oil. You want to store the car with fresh oil. The acid in the oil will etch the bearings over the course of the winter. You want to store the car with the soft top erected, because otherwise it'll shrink over the course of the winter. And you have to wait for a nice hot July day to stretch it back out again and get it over the lift-the-dot studs. Cover the car. Nature hates a void, so any horizontal surface is a magnet for groceries, empty cardboard boxes, you name it. 153 people now. So those are the store it with full tank gasoline. You can put in stable. There's all kinds of products that you can buy to put it into the gasoline that's supposed to keep the water in suspension so it doesn't fall out of suspension. But some of that stuff is alcohol, and there's already alcohol in the gasoline. So why wouldn't that do it? But anyway, there's that. What else? there's some complicated things that people do. If you want to jack the car up, if you want to jack it up and have it off the ground on jack stands, then make sure that the jack stands are underneath the rear axle and at the outside of the A-arms, so that the suspension sits in relatively the same position as it would normally, and everything isn't just hanging in under stress. So that's about the word. Oh, antifreeze. That's always a good idea. It's awfully embarrassing to come back with a cracked cylinder block. So anyway, that's just a real quick thing. I've got winter storage instructions on the top ribbon on my website. You can go there, download. I don't think I've got the story about the jack stands and the used motor oil. But there's a lot of other stuff there that might be helpful to you. Another thing that we used to do was to expend almost an entire can of WD-40 underneath the bonnet. And it would, of course, the car would smell like a WD-40 factory for a couple of days until the carrier had evaporated. But it left sort of a shiny protection on everything, especially all the aluminum stuff, and prohibits or at least slows down rusting. So anyway, those are my comments. So what I want to do is open it up to talk about the brake pads. So so anybody who wants to weigh in can unmute themselves, and we can have a little chat about brake pads and brake pad squealing.
Hey, John,
Yes.
I was seeing a program the other night, some British mechanic, and he was restoring a 65 Morse Minor. And he was putting in disc brakes in it also. And he said, to keep the things from squealing, he was using that red marine grease on the back of the pads. And he was saying he's putting a layer of that on there. And I was going, that doesn't sound right. I mean, what on the heat up, and all of a sudden you're going to start splashing grease. But he said that a lot of the British mechanics do that. You ever hear of that?
No, doesn't sound like a good idea to me. I was just telling a guy today that I went to the Daimler and Lanchester Owners Club meet in Cleveland, Ohio in 1980. And there were a bunch of Daimler darts there, SP250s, fast. They got a V8 and a fiberglass body. Unfortunately, the cars look like a cross between a Sunbeam Alpine and a largemouth Bass. So I don't think there's a less attractive British sports car out there, but they just go like stink. Anyway, this guy says, yeah, my brakes are squealing, and I don't know what to do. And I started telling him about taking the brake pads out and sanding them, putting duct tape on the back. And he goes, oh, that's too complicated. He says, I just get down there every couple of weeks and spray it down real good with WD-40. Okay, but that sort of sounds, I wouldn't put grease on the back. I mean, gel, something that gels up, absolutely, but not grease. That doesn't sound safe to me.
And you're also saying about preserving or winterizing the car. What is this? It's just something new I heard about you mentioned it, of putting a tarp or a plastic wrap on the ground underneath the car.
Yes.
But wouldn't that, we used to watch that when I worked on aircraft quite a bit, because the cement underneath would condensate and it could cause damage actually to your cement floor. So you'd have to really watch that. And when I worked in Hawaii, this one person was saying, anything metal, and you want to make sure that nothing is human on it, go ahead and put like an old terry cloth towel. And that absorbs the humidity. And we throw it over sewing machines and stuff like that, or you get a large terry cloth and you throw it underneath the car, or you can go to the Salvation Army and grab yourself a type of cover for, let's say, a king size cover bedspread, throw it underneath the car, and that'll absorb the humidity and not let anything up. We did that a lot.
Okay. All right. I hadn't thought about damaging the concrete. More excited about my car,
In the age of Amazon, where my wife in particular is getting boxes every day, my car, I have a pad of cardboard boxes under my car. That absorbs the moisture, keeps the moisture from the cement getting up to it, and presumably wouldn't damage the cement either.
Well, that's what I'm using temporarily. So Bob, what do you got to?
It's two things. A car collector friend of mine uses desiccant under all his cars. And he said he doesn't even get surface rust underneath the cars. That's what it's not cheap, but he worked for the phone company, so he got a lot of free desiccant. But the other thing is brake pads. I've been using a Duralast from AutoZone, and they don't squeal. I don't know if they're better or worse than any other pad, but I've never had Duralast. Yeah, it's a Duralast brand from AutoZone. It's their brand.
Okay.
And it's the thing I like about it, lifetime warranty. And if you wear the pads out, they give you another set. It's not against manufacturer defect. It's if you wear them out, because people don't keep their cars that long. I haven't bought a set of brake pads in many years. They just take the old ones in, they give me a new set. And I haven't had any squealing.
Duralast from AutoZone.
Yeah, you get the top of the line. Don't get they have some other off brands there.
Okay.
I never use. But.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks.
Hey, John. John,
Yes.
it says Dora on there, but my name's Rudy.
Okay.
So I used to work for Napa Auto Parts, and we talked about three things with brakes. You always want to wash your rotor if you cut it. You want to put lube on any place metal touches metal, and it's going to be brake lube, not oil or grease. And three, you want to bed in the pads. And the way we did it is you drive the car about 35 miles an hour. You put the brakes on and warm them up. You slow it down. You don't stop, you keep doing it. So you're going to bring it up to 35. You're going to slow the car down. You're going to bring it up to 35. You're going to slow the car down. You want to do that 10 to 12 times. That'll bed in the pad. You should not get any noise after that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very
John?
much.
John,
Yeah, Tony.
here's a CRC product. It's brake and caliper grease.
Okay.
It's a synthetic product. You don't smear it on it like the gentleman was just talking about. The metal to metal contact, you just put a little bit on there and you'll stop the squealing. I don't get the squealing from the pad itself. I get it from the backside, especially on the C, the Girling brakes on the C.
Oh, yeah, the drilling
They're
brakes all
terrible.
squeal. Yeah.
And back 50 some years ago, when I worked at the gas station, when we did the drum brakes, there's where the shoe kind of touches the back plate. There's a couple spots, flat spots. We didn't goop it on, but you just took your finger, just smeared on a little grease and, rubbed it off. And that prevented the squealing until of course that was asbestos, until the asbestos got in there and lubricated it. But
Okay.
that always cut back on that.
All
But yeah, the
right.
CRC product works really well.
Thank you.
Back in there. Yep.
So I have a question. Do slotted rotors have any effect on brake squeal versus the normal solid?
Roger Parker, in the note that I got from him today, said yes, that the slotted rotors exacerbate the problem. Don't know why. It seems to me it's like running your brake pad on a cheese grater to have slotted rotors. I mean, I understand the idea to cool the rotors fast, but my buddy in Holland, Michigan, Carl Heidemann, said, I wonder how long it takes on a normal MGB to affect the brakes by heavy duty braking. And I think he said he had to go out and he had to do 20, like 0 or 60 to 0 stops in rapid succession before the brakes started to get spongy. So they don't, the heat, they dissipate, the regular MGB brakes dissipate the heat just fine. So you don't need the slotted, drilled or slotted rotors, you don't need them. But Roger Parker said that it can make it worse. What does that mean? It can, so I don't know. I don't understand how it would, but he said it did. So it's not me talking.
John, what's your opinion on ceramic brakes?
I don't have one. It seems to me the harder they are, the more squeal that you're gonna end up with.
Okay.
I'll see if I can get that article that Roger posted. I'll see if I can get that up somehow, somewhere. First of all, I gotta clear it with him because he's an employee of the MG Owners Club in Swayze, Cambridge, England, and I don't wanna violate any copyrights. So,
John,
yes, Alan.
Alan from Toronto. Hi. So my MGB, as Tony has, and I see Paul at the bottom there has as well. So we all have the Girling brakes. I chose to use EBC green stuff pads. And when you buy green stuff or any EBC pad, it comes with a backing material by 3M, which is more or less like duct tape, same stuff.
Okay,
The Girling brake pads you may have had some experience with come with a shim. There's a metal shim
yes.
that goes in there as well. And I think I heard it from you, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. But you also said put a light coating of Silglide, Napa's Silglide. Would that have been something you would have advised?
Not externally, probably, no. For fear of what was it Peter who said earlier, about wiping the whole back of the pad with grease. You don't want to get anything, you don't want to have anything sitting around in there in quantity that's going to end up on the brake pad.
Oh, like
and on the brake rotor.
very light coating on the back, like underneath the metal shim.
Well, anything you can do to cut down on that vibration, that high pitched vibration that causes the squeal. So.
And EBC's instructions are exactly what Rudy suggested, and to go through that 10 cycles of slowing the car down from a moderate speed and then driving it modestly for a little while until those brakes are fully bedded in.
Okay.
So Rudy, you're right on.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for weighing in. I'm going to start over on the chat section. Let me just see here from Neil, the 79 MGB. I'm lucky enough to have my 79 MGB kept, not as warm as inside, but not as cold as outside. Also, I drive it once a week, rain or shine. So he's from Washington, DC. Neil, are you from Washington, DC? Or
Yes,
Washington
I am.
State? Okay. So it doesn't get as cold there as it does up here. I'm no fan of starting your car in your garage and letting it idle to warm up and then shutting it off. If you go out and drive it, then it gets hot enough. Otherwise, you get a lot of water that condenses inside the exhaust and it'll rust the exhaust from the inside out, assuming you don't have a stainless system. But if you go out and drive it, that's, hey, that's great. That's wonderful. Were you at the Hunt Country Classic, Neil?
Yeah, you completely redid my electrical and I appreciate it.
Yeah, okay. Oh yeah, Neil had, it was one of those deals where the former owner had taken it to a shop and said, make my rear lights work. So they did. There's about 2 miles of lamp cord and stuff in the back and everything worked, but it's like, oh my gosh. So the first step I always do is pull out all the extra wire and then just go connection to connection. And then guess what? It all works in the end. So, hey, great. Neil, thank you very, very much.
Thank you. And I do drive it outside. I think I would choke or kill myself if I stayed in the garage, right?
Well, yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Hey, John,
Alan, yeah, go
John,
ahead.
are you going to be at that next year for rebuilding MGB engine?
Yes. I'm not sure. I'm not at the Hunt Country Classic. I'm going to be there in the springtime. So
Yeah.
Somebody's asked me a question a little bit later on here, but yes.
Okay, you're going to be at Randy's house?
I'm going to be at Sean English's house.
Okay.
Putting together an engine there, and then there's also maybe a possibility of doing a T-type gearbox at another guy's house. So, and those will be limited to maybe 15 to 20 people just because of the logistics and the parking and so forth. And those will be pay per view, you know, you come in, but boy, if you're gonna, first of all, it's just great entertainment listening to me for 2 solid days. Jeez. But you can learn a whole lot about rebuilding your, you know, your MGB engine or any engine for
Yeah.
that matter, although it's, you know, specifically an MGB engine.
Okay, great.
That we'll be doing, so. Okay, all right, so Alan Vinegar, I've got MGC and cannot get my front brake rotor run out in spec. So is that wobbly more than 2 or 3 thousandths, Alan?
It's 9 thou run out.
Oh, that's a lot. That's a lot. Okay, so I mean,
And I've tried first Moss's cheap rotors, had them taken to a shop to have them put on a lathe, didn't help. Now I
okay,
went out and bought expensive EBC rotors. Same deal.
okay, so let's assume it's not the rotors from that. And let's
So
go to the hub. So
So-
sometimes the hub's been hammered on and there's a minuscule lip. I mean, you only need a 2 thousandths or 3 thousandths lip right there to amplify itself by the time it gets out to the outside of the rotor. I
can
mean,
that hub be chucked up on a lathe
yes,
and turned?
absolutely. That's how it's made.
Because, I mean, I've taken a flat file and gently gone around it to try and
Okay,
look for any burrs on it or anything that would cause a lift. But I couldn't improve it. I couldn't make it better. And I tried changing the bolt. You know, first you put it in one situation, mark it with a pen, turn it another bolt over, mark it, turn it, mark it. I couldn't improve it. I drove in new bearings, like the outer shell
mhm.
bearings in, the spacer, put new spacers in, new shims in.
Does this affect the braking? Can you feel it in the pedal?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. One's worse than the other. One side is 4 thou out and the other side's 9 thou out.
Okay, all right. We never did this. We never, with an MGB, if it was a screwed up rotor, you just went and got a used one. But with an MGC, I can understand that getting another rotor is a hassle. Another
Rotors, so I've got rotors, it's fine. I think
meant-
I might have to buy a new hub if they can't be turned. I've got a very good shop, theoretically.
Yeah, well, just have them chuck it up and draw their tool across the mating surface, and that ought to do it.
From is it from your lips to God's ears? Thank you.
Come on. Okay, and Alan's from Toronto. All right.
And John, I'm
Yes.
gonna task you to send me an email because you're listed down as one of our tech session presenters, not the rolling tech session on Tuesday, but on Monday, you're down to give a talk. And
Okay.
I need a topic from you.
Hey, sure. I can do that.
I'll flip you an email as a
Thank
reminder.
you. Okay. And for those of you who are on, we got 176 people on right now. For those of you who are on, that's the big MG meet. It's basically MGBs, but all MGs are welcome. In Peterborough, Ontario, the border opened today. So there's relatively free traffic and travel between our two countries. All you need is an enhanced driver's license, Nexus card, or a passport. You got to plan on getting that well before the event, but please come to MG 2022, which is like about the third week in June, isn't it? Maybe around the 15th or something?
It's around June the 19th. I'll give you a little sales pitch. Aside from John Twist's rolling tech session, we're going to have Dave Braun rebuilding all SU carburetors. we're going to have Ian Pogson, who was one of the designers of the MGF, coming in from England. We're probably going to have Calvin Dodd from Moss talking on some topic MGB related. We've got an electric midget, very professionally converted midget. Somebody's going to discuss how that was done. We've got some wonderful presenters. And aside from that, you know, it's the Nangbur annual meet, and Peterborough is a lovely town. You guys are all going to love it. There's a lot to see and do there. Go on the website for Nangbur, and there should be some information. So
And
that's my plug for, that's my plug.
Okay, Peterborough is about what, an hour northeast of Toronto, the northeast of the GTA?
Yeah, and it's on the Trent Severn waterway system. So there's water, it's beautiful, it's green, it's lovely.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, John, for allowing me to plug.
Okay, all right. And from John Tershak asks, can you give a little more info about the engine class in DC? But as I know more about it, like when it's going to be, I will let everybody know. From Judd, the three scariest words, new and improved. Well, it's always new. It's always new. It's just sometimes it isn't really improved, right? From B. Porter to everybody. Round robin. B. Porter, tell me what you mean here. But I don't hear Mr. Porter, so we will continue on to Charles. I changed my oil in my 1975 MGB and it reads on the max side of the dipstick now. Normal oil pressure was 75, but now it reads 90. Is that too high? Should I take some oil out? Well, Charles, you can weigh in. Okay, so the quantity of oil in the sump is not, it has nothing to do with the amount of oil pressure, except in reverse. If there's not enough oil, you can in your sucking air, you can aerate the oil and have a failure in oil pressure. There's no problem with 90 pounds of oil pressure on the road. We used to see that a lot. Are you using 20W50 oil?
Yeah, I'm thinking that might have been the change. I went from 10W40 to 20W50. That, I guess, after hearing what you said, that may be why it's reading a little higher now.
But that's okay. That's okay.
Okay.
That's okay.
Good. Then I'll,
You know, there are two types of oil leaks. There are three types of oil leaks you can have. You can have stationary leaks, like something drips out of the sump or out of the gearbox or the differential, the brakes, just sitting there. You know, and then there's sort of passive leaks, like leaking out of the side cover, you know, when you're running the car. And then there are pressure leaks. And of course, with 90 pounds more than 75 pounds, if you've got anything that's leaking, drip, 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 there's only so many drops in a gallon. It shouldn't be a problem at all. But
I won't know that till next year. I just changed the oil before I put her to bed. So, but I'll keep that in mind. But I can also add something about winterizing.
Sure.
I bought one of those, for lack of a better word, one of those giant Ziploc bags you drive your car into.
Yes.
And have used it for 3 years. I keep my cars in a barn, an unheated barn. So there are critters out there. 3 years and no problems. But fast forward to when I first used it, drove my car in there and started to zip up the miles and miles of zipper and got all the way around the car and got down to the last 12 or 13 inches of zipper to use. And this mouse shot out from under the car. So he was in jeopardy of being kept in there all winter, and who knows what he was going to do. So I put a mouse trap in there now before I zip it up, and I'll leave it in there for a week or so to make sure there aren't any stragglers left behind. But and I think they come with some dehydration bag or dehumidifying bags you can throw in there too.
The desiccant that somebody was talking about here. Yeah.
Yeah, so 3
okay.
years and I haven't had any trouble.
Where,
It's
where are
worked
you
well for
calling?
me.
Where do you live?
Hour south of Indianapolis,
Okay, Evansville?
halfway between Bloomington, north of Bloomington.
Oh, okay, Brown
Yep.
County?
You know it. Yeah.
Hey, hey. All right, let's see, Neil's weighed in. Thanks for fixing my wiring. Now I'm trying to get all the dash lights to work with LED bulbs. I'm able to get the oil light and the clock to work, but not the others. Any ideas on what to do about the other ones? And that's in the back of the dash. So all those little LED bulbs in the back of the dash, there's bayonet ones and there's screw-in ones. No, I don't. I mean, first of all, you've got to make sure you got power back there, and the dash rheostat is always faulty. Just the best thing you can do with a dash rheostat is jump through it. That's over on the left-hand side. What year is your car, Neil? 79. So that your dash rheostat is over on the left-hand side of the dashboard. You reach up underneath there, and might be a single or a pair of red with white wires, which are the power in. And then there's, white, red with green power in, and then red with white power out. You just jump them all together, put a piggyback terminal on the back of your rheostat. It's probably the rheostat, which has got too much resistance and isn't allowing enough voltage to get to those LEDs. Just a guess, but that's where I'd start because that's always the weakest part in that system.
Yeah, John,
Yes,
the other thing along with the jumping around the rheostat is to make sure you've got good ground. I'm a former aircraft mechanic. I'm an amateur radio operator. The thing that kills more electronics in vehicles and makes more things faulty is just bad grounding.
there isn't usually much of a problem getting the ground up around the dash. It's all zigzagged with stuff up there. It's usually not too. But anyway, yes, I agree completely. You got to complete the circuit. So.
Well, and incandescents can handle a little more resistance on a ground connection than what the LEDs can. If
Okay.
that's dirty, then the LEDs don't always get what they like. They're a little pickier than the incandescents.
Okay, all right. Thank you very
John,
much.
I don't know what kind of car Neil has, but I know a lot of people have tried to use LEDs for the ignition warning light, and that generally doesn't work. Just because of the nature of how it backflows if you're not getting enough alternator or generator voltage in, or then it has to go the other way or something. But anyway, replacing all the other lights in the dash is probably a good thing. But if you have an ignition warning light like in my TD, and I think the MGA, and I don't know about the MGB, are the same thing, you can't really replace that ignition light with an LED.
Thank you. Nor can you replace the turn signal bulb on a TR6 with an LED. It works perfectly in one direction, won't work in the other. So
Interesting, because the turn signal indicator in my MGA, when I put an LED in it to make it bright enough to see, when the turn signal turns off, it continues to, the one on the dashboard continues to flash weaker and weaker and weaker, but for about 10 or 15 seconds. But the turn signals aren't flashing, just that. Now I have an electronic flasher unit because I do have LEDs in the signals, but an incandescent goes out as soon as the turn signals are off. The LED continues to flash.
interesting. So, all right, we got Michael Dowie. Michael, you can weigh in here. I'm fitting a rebuilt engine to my 68 MGB. I'm thinking about getting the original distributor professionally reconditioned. Or should I buy a new electronic one? Get the original one rebuilt. Absolutely, positively, 100%. So I'm pretty adamant about that. So are you on? Are you able to unmute yourself, Michael?
Yes, I can hear you. I
All
will
right.
I'm thinking of getting the original one rebuilt. I agree with you. I've heard varying reports about the electronic ones that you can buy, which in some cases are probably no more expensive than getting the original one rebuilt. But I think, yeah, I think on balance, I'd prefer the original one.
Well, let's see, a couple of comments. First of all, with an electronic ignition, it works great. You never have to touch it until the moment it fails, and then it fails completely. And you cannot make it rework by swearing at it, or the penny, or a screwdriver, or a stick, or a tire iron, all of which I've used to get the points working again. So if you do have electronic ignition, you must carry a second plate with the wires on it, and the wires should have spade terminals, so you can make a quick disconnect. Just take the cap off, take the rotor off, maybe the magnet off the center of the distributor, pull the plate off, put the next plate on, put it all back together, and off you go again. So any electronic ignition demands that you have a secondary plate and a Phillips screwdriver, so you can actually do the work when you're next to the expressway and the cars are zipping by at 100 miles an hour. The second thing is that the new distributors meet specifications for what car? Don't know. And chances are that if you put them on a distributor machine, that they're not the same one after another. So the best distributor you can get for your car, I think you've got a 41 118 and 188 in there now, but you should get the 40897. That's the 1962 through 67 distributor, and yours can be changed so that it has the original advanced spec to it. That was the best distributor that they had. After 1967, all the cars were changed so that they would meet emissions. Where are you calling from, Michael?
Northern Ireland.
Oh, well, here they were all changed. You guys ran that 40897 all the way, and then when it went to the 45D, it went to the 41427 distributor. But yes, get yours rebuilt. It's just far better, far better.
Yeah, there's a guy in England, he's called the distributor doctor. He specializes in rebuilding the Lucas distributors. So I'm going to send it over to him.
I'm sure you'll be far happier. And if there is a problem, like a faulty condenser, there's only so much you can do to check a condenser. And that is a real weak point lately in a lot of the point style distributors. All you need to do is put another condenser in it and off you go. It's the advanced spec that you're after, so.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, all right. Well,
if I can weigh in on something here too.
Yeah.
When you put a rotor, get the new rotor there, like a red or orange color, because the black ones fail a lot.
The red rotors.
Yeah, the premium red rotors. Yeah.
Red rotors. Yeah. Okay, from Dora. How can I tell if it's a bad U-joint or the diff making noise in my 65 MGB? So Dora, you can unmute yourself.
I have, and it's Rudy.
Oh, that's right. It's Rudy. That's right.
Yeah,
Okay.
I always use my wife's laptop.
That's right.
That's what it is.
All right. So there are a whole bunch of things that can cause a clunk underneath the car. You got wire wheels or disc wheels?
Wire.
Okay. So the things that can cause a clunk that can sound the same as another reason are the rear flange on the gearbox is loose from the main shaft. The 4 bolts that hold the 2 flanges, the gearbox and the drive shaft flange, are loose. The front U-joint is bad. The slip joint on the drive shaft is bad. The rear U-joint is loose. The bolts holding the rear flange of the drive shaft to the front of the differential are loose. The hubs can be loose, or the and or the wire wheels can be loose. So if you get underneath the vehicle and put it in neutral so you can turn the drive shaft and slip underneath there and turn the drive shaft so that the U-joint is one of the axes is like this, and grab the drive shaft, you cannot move it up and down. Turn it 90 degrees, you cannot move it up and down. If you can, then there's some free play in the U-joint. The next thing is to have your associate get inside the car, put the brakes on, and you grab a hold of the rear wheel and rotate it. Now it's going to be loose from the hub. The wheel is going to be loose from the hub. The question is how much compared to the other side, compared to the front. And you can get easily half an inch of movement out of the rear wheels. You go, oh geez, that's real creepy, but it's just the way it is. So anyway, you're just going to have to make a determination, but the drive shaft is the more dangerous of the two. You don't want that to come apart at speed. So.
Okay, and you talked about the slip joint. So how would I know if that slip joint was the problem?
You know, the slip joint is made so that as the engine moves fore and aft and the rear axle moves up and down through a radius, that the distance between the front of the diff and the back of the gearbox is always changing incrementally. I mean, just a tiny amount, but it can't be rigid. So you get a slip joint there just to move. And if you grab the slip joint and just move it up and down, it shouldn't be doing this.
Okay. And in that case, I just have to buy a new one then, I guess.
If it's that bad, yes. But if the U-joints are bad, you can change the U-joints.
Right.
I've got a YouTube video up on that. The fastest I ever changed the U-joint out of the car. Somebody said, oh, you took it out of the car and put it back in? No. 4.5 minutes doesn't allow enough time to get it in and out of the car, but it does allow just enough time to change the U-joint. But you can always take your drive shaft to a truck shop, and they do U-joints all day, and they'll balance the drive shaft, and that's a really nice thing to do. If the drive shaft has been damaged, if it's been rusted badly, the last time someone did a U-joint, they bent it. It's got undercoating on half of it, not on the other half of it. They can make it come out really nicely.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep. All right, next one up is HMAC 3 brake squeal. I have it. Yep. Well, now we have some hints on how to get rid of it. Oh, and from Judd, we're having our annual Veterans Day 200-mile celebration drive in Gowensville, South Carolina. So how do we get in touch with you, Judd, if there's somebody else from South Carolina who'd like to go on that run?
This is being organized by the Western North Carolina British Car Club and the one I'm in, Foothills British Car Club. Go on the web for either one of them, pay your $30 a year and join. And we drive every week up into Brevard and Rosman and Waynesville and all through the southern Blue Ridge Mountains and have a ball. I'm going out tomorrow morning to go to Brevard for breakfast in the MGA. That'll only be about 100 miles.
Hey, well, great. It's
That's
nice.
the best winterizing I know to do to a car.
Hey.
But I live in the South.
Okay, well, yeah, it's a lot different than here, so, yep. Well, anyway, thank you, Judd, thanks. So George McLaughlin weighs in and says, do slotted rotors contribute to brake squeal? And Roger Parker says that they may. What does that mean? So.
Let me follow up on that.
Yeah.
Because a gentleman mentioned Duralast brake pads, and I'm looking at Duralast website, and there's, for the AutoZone, there's 3. There's a regular, gold, and elite. Which ones did the individual say were the best to implement this?
Bob.
Well, we generally use Duralast, sometimes gold, whatever they have at the time.
Okay.
But just a regular Duralast, a lifetime warranty. Got to make sure it's a lifetime warranty. And like I said, I've never had a problem with them, and AutoZone replaces them, no questions asked. That just amazes me. But most people don't keep their car that long.
All right. Well, they had three. I just wanted to make sure. So, okay, cool. Thank you.
Okey doke. All right. So Ruth Arnold has weighed in and says that peppermint spray works beautifully. This must be not to get rid of squealing brakes, but to inhibit the mice from taking up residence. Peppermint spray, and then when you get into it next
Exactly
time.
it. We had a rat problem in our garage a while ago, and everyone was panicking, and I found this wonderful peppermint spray on Amazon, and the car smelled like toothpaste, but I didn't have any eaten wires, and everything was splendid. So I highly recommend it.
Okay, it's
The
got
rats are gone now.
it's got to smell better than mothballs. So
Yes,
There's
exactly.
this website we looked up for that problem, and peppermint spray was one of the things recommended, along with dryer sheets and a bunch. And the main thing they said is get a cat.
get a cat. Yeah. All right. That's-
Someone in our condo building got hold of some pictures of, I guess they were cardboard cutouts of black cats and put them around all over the place. It was hilarious. But anyway, the rats have now gone, I'm happy to say.
Very nice. Very nice.
Thank you, John.
And Ruth, you're calling in from?
Alexandria, Virginia.
I knew that, but I wanted everybody else to know. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, my mother-in-law swears by peppermint spray. She lives in Washington, DC, in a house that's 105 years old, and we have to buy it for her all the time, and she swears by it. So I use it for the car also.
There's something about rodents and the nation's capital, huh? And peppermint
Yes.
spray.
There's something called mouse magic, and it's a peppermint material in a bag that you can set in the car, under the car,
Okay.
in the trunk, whatever. I'm trying it this year. I've never tried it before, so I'm glad to hear the peppermint scent keeps them away.
Oh, that sounds-
They
that's
got
good.
bad reviews.
Excellent. Excellent.
John,
So now we're on to Jay Miller. Jay, you can unmute yourself. Let us know
I'm
where you're
here.
from. And where are you from?
John, I'm from a little village in southern New England called Little Compton, Rhode Island.
All right. Okay. And by fogging the engine, you mean with like WD-40 or something?
Well, I'm not sure how different the WD-40 is from the spray fogger that, we're a boating community here in Rhode Island.
Okay. All right.
And we fog outboard engines during the winter, and we fog diesel engines in boats. I'm wondering, is that something that would be considered?
Sure. It's all to protect the metal.
Yep.
So yes, absolutely.
Okay. And what we do with our boat engines here is we just we take the fuel out of the tanks, and we fog it through the carburetor or the injection system until we start seeing the residue of the fog come out the exhaust pipe, and then we shut it down. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Anything to keep everything on the inside from rusting, if you're in a high dry climate, it's probably not necessary, but any place where there's a lot of water vapor, oh my gosh, yes.
In Rhode Island, our motto for this state of Rhode Island is we're small and moist.
Oh, boy. Okay. All right. Jay, thank you very kindly.
Thank you, John.
Alan Vinegar suggests putting extra air in the tires for leaving it all night or for all winter. Okay, Alan Thompson, what is the preference for dealing with a battery during winter storage? I didn't mention that. That's an essential thing here. A battery tender is absolutely the way to go. It's effortless. Open up the bonnet, hook it up to the fuse box, to the hot circuit. You don't even have to go find the battery. Just hook it up to the hot circuit which is the brown wires. The bottom fuse on an MGB 68 through 80, the top fuse on an MGB 62 through 67. And the rest of the cars you got to take a look at, but it's the brown wires that are always hot. And just go from there and plug the thing in and you can walk away. That's the idea. And it keeps the battery at full charge. If you take the battery out of the car, which isn't a bad idea because then it forces you to service the battery before you put it back in, which is to wash it, get it clean, spread the clamps, make sure you got a good connection there. But then you end up with the battery sitting around and that's a hassle. And you still have to keep it charged. You don't want to let it discharge, which it does by itself, and freeze, because then it's electrolyte, which is sulfuric acid, all over the place. So yeah, I forgot to mention that. I'm a real fan of battery tenders. Although I think the last time we talked about this, someone said that battery tender is a trade name, like Kleenex is a trade name. But that's the idea, that one of those battery maintenance chargers that checks the voltage of the battery, and if it needs a little burst of charge, gives it to it. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. So are you still on, Mr. Alan Thompson? So we can find out where you're from.
I am. I'm in Sarasota, Florida.
Oh, hey, you don't have to put your car away.
No, but I just came in from the UK, so I put it in storage in the UK.
All right, okay. Yes, battery tenders.
Okay, that's good.
It's creepy though. Your mains there are 220, and our mains are only 110. So when things go upside down, I remember reading stories in the MG Owners Club or Safety Fast or something really years ago about some cheap kind of battery charger. And the earth was common, and if the unit had a little tiny interior fault, which some of them did, and you touched your car body while the battery was hooked up, you could get a pretty good jolt. Anyway, just a comment. So are you here for longer than COVID, or are you here forever? Or what? Just Alan. What are you doing here?
Sorry, John. We spend our winters here. We come over in October around this time, and then stay until April, and then go
Very
back
nice.
to the UK.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Thank you very much. From Chuck to everybody, anyone have a preference for semi-metallic or ceramic pads? I think the semi-metallic are better than the ceramic for squealing. But again, I'm not sure. So Chuck, are you still here? Can you unmute yourself? So either Chuck's having a hard time, or he's gone, or he can't unmute himself. But we still have, anyway, he goes on to say, I use disc brake grease on the back of the pads where they contact the caliper piston. And I've also used silicone RTV in the same area. The silicone RTV, that's the nuts. That's the great stuff. So anyway. All right, Jay Miller, does anyone have experience with EZ car lifts for storage as an alternative to jack stands? EZ, like Echo Zebra, EZ car lifts. So Jay, are you still on?
Yes, John, I am. I get emails, as probably most of you, if not all of you, get from Holden in the UK, and they're selling this product now. That's a brand name, obviously, but it's made in the United States, and it's essentially a way of lifting the car up. It's a short level lift that fits easily into garages that don't have ceiling space for a full size lift. I'm just wondering, that's probably a good idea as an alternative to jack stands, don't you think?
Could be. Although what keeps it up? Hydraulic pressure, or it must come up a notch. Must have safety notches on it. Is this a thing of scissors lift that brings it up 3 feet or something, or is?
Yes, it only goes up. I don't know if it's a scissor lift or not. But it does, John, only go up 4 feet, something like that. And it's highly reviewed from what I can tell on the internet. And you actually raise it by using an electric driver, an electric drill.
Okay.
So it's mechanical rather than hydraulic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Most of those lifts there be that your suspension would sag.
We got a couple people trying to weigh in on this.
Hey, John, this is Glenn. I've got an easy lift and I can comment.
Yes.
So I live here in Maryland, north of Baltimore. I use it because I don't have a high clearance in my garage, and yes, it only lifts the vehicle by about 33 or 4 inches. They are a scissor jack of concept, and it is raised and lowered with a 9-amp electric drill. So I went down to Harbor Freight and got the appropriate one. But it does what it does is it lifts the chassis. So the idea that you want the suspension supported, Easy Lift doesn't do that. It lifts the chassis, or on a monarch body, it lifts the body, but then all the wheels start dangling.
Okay. Okay. So that's some information. Maybe it makes it a little easier to work on some stuff, work on the brakes or something. So then the idea about the suspension is that if you've got the new nylon bushings in the suspension that actually rotate, that's one thing. But if you've got rubber bushings in the suspension yet, either in the front or the back, then they're supposed to be tightened when you're under load. So they take up a set. And if you then let something come down, it's hard to show this on the screen, but if you start up here and then it's in this proper normal position and then let the thing sit for a couple months, it's going to stress this bushing up here at the top. So that's why I'm keen, if you're going to lift it up, is to keep it supported as though it were on the ground. So the Easy Lift doesn't do that, but.
No, that's very helpful. Thank you for talking about that with your experience and how it does not in fact do it the right way for storage.
And then Jay also goes on to ask about, does anyone have experience using the car capsule? And the man who was on here before, who said the mouse ran out just before he zipped it up. So yes, and there's a couple different ones. There's some that have fans in them that circulate the air continuously. You plug them in, and it keeps them inflated like those old Dome World tents, that used to have roller skating rinks or indoor racetracks or something. But it seems to me as though that's defeating the purpose by circulating air, because that's what you want to keep out of there is that damp air.
Thanks. Hi, John. Guido.
I don't know. What, a couple, $300 maybe for one of those bags that's got the 2 miles of zipper on it?
Yeah, it's a Rhino Shelter indoor car storage bag for $300.
Okay, Rhino.
Yeah, it's called an indoor storage bag, but I
Okay.
mean, it just means it can't stay out in the weather. I got a barn, but it's technically indoors, so it's
Right.
made by Rhino.
Okay, Rhino, okay. So HMAC 3 is weighed in and said Duralast, Bob and Gloria's favorite brake pad, is made by Federal Mogul. Interesting. And let's see, Ruth Arnold is weighed in to say that she's putting flattened cardboard boxes. This is our third cardboard box comment under the MG to absorb the leaking oil. You can also use great big pizza pans underneath there, aluminum pans right down the middle to catch the oil that leaks out. Ken Stokes, same for me. I picked up a new Amazon box from a neighbor's recycling pile on the midday dog walk. So Keith is using a cardboard box too. That's what we used at University Motors when we lay underneath an MGB or a Morris Marina to do warranty gearboxes. And I'd like to tell everybody I was at University Motors for a year working on MGs. And when they did come in, I worked on them, but most of the time I was doing warranty gearbox repair on Morris Marinas. And that's all we had to lie on were old cardboard boxes. So David Massey weighs in and says, while all of you up north put your cars away, it's time for me to start driving. It's finally cool enough in South Florida. My season is opposite yours. So, all right, well, David, just don't get too uppity about this. So, let's see. Keith Stokes, same thing for me, David, less than 90 degrees. Peppermint spray, Peter Koreski, peppermint spray can be obtained from Amazon. We've got Larry Prang. Hey, John, it's Larry Prang from Grand Rapids. You looked at my MGA over the summer with low oil pressure at idle and poor brakes. Love to fill you in on how I address the issues. So, Mr. Prang, are you on?
I am indeed.
Okay.
So the MGA, with the engine only had, I picked up the engine only had 1,000 miles on it when I got it. We got the car, it has about 2,000 now, but at idle, it was only about 10 pounds of pressure, but it goes right up to 60 pounds when I accelerate it, but at idle, it's only 10 pounds.
It's okay.
We put a different gauge on it, didn't change it, different steel braided hose to make sure it wasn't collapsed. And the oil wasn't foaming. Everything seemed, it was kind of unexplainable. So I did drop the pan. I put all new rod bearings in, and the rod bearings I took off looked fine. There was one that had a slight gouge in it. Something got in there, but it wasn't that bad. And the journal seemed fine. And I changed the center main bearing. And it went from 10 pounds steering idle up to 12 pounds steering idle. Oh, I put a new oil pump on too, since I had it down.
Okay.
So I didn't do anything. Well, I did something, but not much. Yes, I don't know. I don't know if it's just the cam bearing is maybe a cam bearing spun or something. I'm not sure what I've got going on. But
you've got 60 pounds going down the road?
Yeah, I have 60 pounds when I accelerate. So that's my plan now, is just to drive it.
Okay, and you had bad brakes, so you must have fixed those.
I fixed those. That ended up being, so I took the master cylinder off. Master cylinder was, I replaced the master cylinder and wheel cylinders. I don't even remember why I replaced the master cylinder. But I think I took the master cylinder back off to bench bleed it to see maybe there was some air stuck in there. And when I was bench bleeding it, I just kept getting a bubble. I kept getting air bubbles. So I finally took the old master cylinder and I put new plungers in it and bled that and threw the old one back on, and perfect. Good to go.
Great. One of my standard lines is anything original rebuilt is better than anything new. Now, that's not, that's not an absolute rule, but it's close.
You work this time.
Okay. Well, hey, great. Thanks a lot, Larry from Grand Rapids. All right. So LB to everybody. I see ads for garage ventilation fans that have a humidity switch. Other cars in the garage shed snow and raise the humidity in the garage. Everything cold gets a layer of moisture. So if you're LB, where are you from, LB? LB's got to be from someplace, but if he's getting snow, chances are you're in a pretty dry climate. Because the relative humidity falls a lot, but once you go in the garage, then all that water's sitting on the floor. So if you can ventilate that and get it outside, that's a real help. Yeah, it's no good having your MG parked next to a puddle of water. Oh, he says I can't talk but I'm listening. Sort of like being with your wife. Anyway, Chuck to everybody, EBC pads have usually a special coating to break in the pads and will come with instructions on how to transfer the coating to the rotors. That is to bed in the rotors. So Chuck, thank you very kindly. Are you still on here? You want to unmute yourself if you can, say hello.
Hi, I am still here.
Okay, so anyway, where are you from?
Columbus, Ohio.
All right, okay. Geez, I've been there. Okay, so anyway, EBC pads. So where have you purchased those?
I haven't, but I've just seen them.
Oh, okay,
Somebody
all
mentioned
right.
green stuff or yellow stuff pads.
Okay.
I just did brakes on one of my daughter's cars, and it also came with that special coating on it with, take it up to 20 miles an hour and step on the brakes a couple of times, then 40, then 60.
Okay. Okay, well, that's, it's like, those are the instructions. It's, we're all guys here, so usually the instructions don't get out of the box, but in the case of these new brake pads, apparently it's essential that you go through whatever they tell you to do to maximize the effectiveness of the pad and to get rid of that squealing. So anyway, thank you very much. Neil from Phoenix, Arizona. I solved the winterization issue by living in Phoenix. That'll work till the water runs out. Greg Fast, stored cars in an enclosed hauler in Oregon, had a dehumidifier that turned on at 70 and off at 45. Okay, so there's a way to do it, because if you're in an enclosed car hauler, water still gets in. I mean, doesn't it rain all the time in Oregon, Washington? So you can't get rid of all the leaks, so it must trickle in someplace. But the dehumidifying is important. That you want to keep it dry. So, Greg, are you still on here?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay. All right. So any idea what that cost to run that dehumidifier? You probably don't.
It was powered out of the house power, so
okay.
It was embedded in our monthly bill, and it was no big deal.
Okay. All right.
It was just a room dehumidifier,
Sure.
like we use in the basement.
Yep. Yep. Sort of like having a refrigerator with the door open all the time. Those things can really suck the current, So anyway, okay. So were you at the Portland event?
Yes, sir. I saw you. I arrived late. I live in Washington now, and
okay.
I saw you as you were ending the talk on the walk around.
Okay.
I did not introduce myself at that point.
Next time when I'm out there, absolutely. Okay, doke. Greg, thank you very much. All right, from Keith Stokes, I used EBC pads on my son's Miata and I was quite happy with them. Okay. Todd Tweedy, hey, I've got a flywheel question. Okay, good. We're off brakes at least for a moment. I've got a flywheel question on my 69 MGC. I'll be pulling my engine this winter to paint the chassis. While it's out, I want to replace the clutch and either lighten the flywheel or replace it with an aluminum alloy. Is that overkill?
I'll go get it now.
Yes.
Wait, I wanted to hear this.
So, okay, but I'm going to mute everybody here because we got some background noise here. Okay, but Todd Tweedy, do not get the aluminum flywheel. No, that's your, you asked me, that's my suggestion. If you've got a race car, hey, then you can go for the aluminum flywheel. But remember that the flywheel has a certain amount of mass to it. So when you're idling in an MGC at 700 RPM and you let your foot off the clutch to take off, the energy from the flywheel is transferred down the drive line to the rear wheels. And it gives you enough launch energy. It gives you enough launch momentum. If you get too light of a flywheel, then you're going to have to raise the RPM to 2000 RPM as you slip the clutch and try to get away from the stop. And that's going to chew up your clutch prematurely. So the reason you've got a flywheel on there that weighs what it does is to give you a launch off a stop sign. Race cars don't leave stop signs. They get going and then they don't stop again until the race is over or worse. Lightening the flywheel maybe a little bit. I want to say that that's probably pretty much the same size as an MGB flywheel, which is like 19 pounds. But I'd be cautious about trimming too much off there. So Todd, do you want to unmute yourself?
Hey, John.
Yes.
So yeah, that concept has been flying around. A bunch of other guys had done it in order to get a little bit more rev on the engine. And some of them were taking upwards of 10 to 12 pounds off an existing flywheel. I know Robert Kirk has an aluminum alloyed one, but it's more, I think, of a race one. I was chatting with a gentleman on the broadcast here who does have an aluminum one on his and is very happy with it. To me, it was, I'm not opposed to spending the money on it, but is it overkill, to go a full flywheel when just doing a lightning to a stock flywheel will essentially give me as much benefit as I was expecting, for not spending a ton of money on it, I guess.
I get your machine shop to trim a little bit of weight off it, and of course the weight on the outside is far more important than the weight on the inside. But I'd want to look at some information. I'm not personally, I'm not keen on the aluminum flywheels. I've seen them come apart and fail. Steel flywheels don't fail. They don't come apart. I've seen one explode. That's a pretty nasty thing to see happen. But they don't. The steel centers don't work out of the aluminum housing or something. So
sure.
And I'm not as familiar with the MGC engine, of course, as I am with the MGB engine. But I counsel everyone with an MGB not to get the aluminum flywheel. So
okay, very good.
John,
thank you, sir.
I weighed in because I was the fellow chatting with Todd. So I went full alloy. And I mean, the fellow who sells them, his name is Robert Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
He claims that flywheel was from a race car engineer, theoretically meant to absorb a lot of energy in much higher performance cars than our little MGCs. So as far as blowing apart, I doubt it. But it's one man's word against the other. And it does make the engine very drivable, doesn't bog down on starts. And if you balance the engine, it runs like it never did ever before.
Okay.
It's a wonderful free rubbing engine now as compared to previously.
Okay.
I didn't do any other changes, no cam changes, nothing. I have a Schlemmer points distributor, nothing exotic, no HS8s, nothing. But certainly the flywheel and balancing the engine, two things I highly encourage people. That's my experience.
Okay, the flywheel that I saw come apart was an all steel flywheel. It wasn't an aluminum one, but I have heard of the steel inserts coming loose because they're screwed or something to the aluminum.
It is. You are correct. It is a center section
assembled,
not turned.
I believe it's a three-piece. I believe it's a three-piece is what he had on there, but
there are good instructions on the MG Experience on how much machining and how much to take off to achieve virtually the same thing in just a machine flywheel. So clearly, Todd, that's another route to go, and I would look into that.
Yeah, I'm gonna look at both options with it.
Ibbotson from, I believe, Australia, who's really taken his car to the max, has.
Bruce?
I think his last name is Ibbotson, from Australia. He is a guru on that topic.
Yeah, it was very interesting to see some of those guys talking about it, but it's also great to hear your feedback as far as you actually having experience. I've never driven one with either having a lightened or even an alloy one in there. It's just that Robert actually reached out to us having this conversation some time back, and because he needed to get an order, I think 10 or 12 of them to be able to have his manufacturer put them together. And like I said, it was, I was vacillating back and forth of, is the bang worth the buck?
Either way.
Yep.
Sorry, John, I didn't mean to take your.
No, that's, hey, it's a, I mean, come on. I'm pretty
I
good with
drive
it.
my car a lot. I drive it 10,000 miles a year.
So what Todd can do is buy the flywheel, not install it, come up to MG 2022, drive Alan's car, and then say, what am I, crazy? I should have put it in, and go back home and put it in, or say, hey, so.
Well, John,
I've handed the keys to my car over to Calvin Dodd at Moss Motors, and I let him rip up and down the highway, oh gosh, the last Nangber meet, not Atlantic
City?
No, Gettysburg, in Gettysburg.
Okay.
And he has an NGC, he hasn't restored it yet, and he just wanted to see what it drives like, and he said, wow, amazing.
Well, John, God willing, I can get everything back together in time. I'll let you take it for a spin up at Brando's in May
right.
when you're here in Minneapolis.
Yeah, we just got a date settled for that. I don't know if I put that out or
14th?
not. Yes, I think so. Yes. Yep.
I'll be there.
I had an aluminum flywheel and it separated. And at first I thought that I had problems with the starter because it was just spinning, then we took the starter out, the starter was fine. And then when we took it apart, it was in two pieces. So I put a steel flywheel back in. One of the things that I noticed is I have a steep driveway and I've got to go up at a slow speed, obviously. And I could not get that car up with that aluminum flywheel in there without slipping the clutch. And so I am very happy to have the steel flywheel back.
So it's a yin and a yang here,
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, anyway, gentlemen, thank you very kindly for weighing in.
Thank you.
Ron?
Yes.
I think that oftentimes people will mistake the idea of racing parts as being superior to street parts, and they're just made for a completely different purpose. You don't want to use racing brakes. You don't want to use a racing transmission either. And it may be the same with a lightened flywheel. A lot of MGB and midget race cars require two people pushing them to get them off the line. So that's why you don't go up a hill in your driveway very easily with an aluminum flywheel.
Yeah, that's John's made a really good point here of there are, if you got a race car, hey, it requires race car parts, but your street car will not perform better with race parts. Not necessarily. All you have to do is buy a race cam. And I mean, a race cam works great at 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 RPM, but just offhand, you're not driving, hit those RPM ranges when you're driving around town or driving into the hills in North or South Carolina. So, John, thank you very much. Mike and Martha Baldwin. It says, John, can I share my recent rotor hub story about eliminating runout with stainless steel shims? So yes, please, just Mike.
Hey, John.
Yes.
I'll try to make it short. But what it came down to is I put brand new rotors and the V8 Stag bigger pads on my 72 MG over the winter. Also put new brake lines on because the steel ones are getting kind of corroded. But when I got the brand new rotors, TRW rotors, pads, British Parts Northwest, everything great. First thing I did, I wanted to teach myself how to do run out with a dial indicator. So I checked the hubs first off. As everybody knows, you got to take the hub and the rotor apart. They bolt together. So I took a dial indicator and checked, and one hub was less than a thousandth at the hub, and the other was like a thousandth and a half. And the bearings were good and tight. Repacked the bearings, so I put the rotors on first off, bolted them together. As I recall, I had one that had 10 thousandths run out total, and the other 15 thousandths, and that's measured out at the edge of the rotor, not at the hub. So I ordered off of Amazon. I said, it got to be somebody has them. I found stainless steel shims, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 thousandths thick. Ordered a pack of all of them. Pack of 20 of all 5 sizes for less than $15. They land on the porch. So I put the shims, measured the high spot and low spot. Obviously, it took longer for the first one than the last one to do that, but about a half a day's time to show myself how to do it. And when I got done at the edge of the rotor, I had 1 thousandths run out and 1.5 on the other. And I just broke it in about 2 weekends ago on a little 110-mile ride up in the mountains and back, trying not to overheat the brakes. So I was breaking them in going uphill rather than down. Smooth as a baby's bottom, and absolutely none of that. Amazing. And you say, well, brand new rotors should have worked. Well, and the hubs should have been something wrong with the hubs. The hubs were very good. And the best I can tell, this car is a 110,000-mile car. I got it from the original owner. These rotors were just too thin. They were the original rotors and the original hubs. No sign anybody had ever been in there before. But if you want to try that trick, it worked pretty well. The only trouble is with an MG, as you know, you got to take it off and unbolt the rotor from the hub every time you want to try a new combination. And obviously, it took me longer the first time than the second time because you get stack up and all that good stuff. But it turned out to be really neat, and nobody sells those shims anywhere. And I said, got to be somewhere. And obviously, as we probably already know, when rotors and hubs are made from the factory, they usually put the rotor and the hub together and turn it as an assembly. But you don't have that option when you put parts together after the fact. So work clean, smooth, and I'm really liking those pads. A little bit of soft pedal till I got them broke in good. But after the first few miles, amazing how smooth. And I got the TRW rotors, because I had to have new rotors. I wanted those. So that's all I got.
Very cool. Okay. We used to use aluminum foil for shimming flywheels because if there's a problem with run out on a brake rotor, you can imagine on a flywheel. So you could take the little bit of tin foil and put it in there, and you could correct it for maybe 3-4 thousandths. So
Well, I started with the same idea. One last thing, the washers or shims I ordered were 3/8 diameter in the center and 5/8 on the outside. They fit exactly over the stud and to just the right amount of space, no trimming, no fatting. Amazing. Of course, now you drop the 1 thousandths one on the floor and try to pick them up, you better wet your finger because they're thin. But worked absolutely slick as they can be. And there's on Amazon, just stainless steel shims.
Okay, Mike, where are you calling from?
I'm in Black Mountain, North Carolina. I'm a little bit east of Asheville. In fact, the fellow talking about going to Brevard for breakfast caught my attention. Last weekend, we drove up to Burnsville and had a pint and then come back down the back way to home, and 110 miles, like I say, if it does 1 mile, it does 110. So that was, I was kind of proud of the work, if I may say so. I put new brake lines all the way through, put new anti-clunk washers in the diff, new wheel cylinders and brake shoes in the back, new rotors and pads in the front, repacked the bearings, put in a new gas tank. All these are age-related things. The car is really in good shape, but pinhole in the gas tank, put new O-rings in the carburetor bowls where they dry out and leak, and a tune-up with a rotor and a cap and all that stuff. Fired up, and I figured if it went around the block one time and didn't leak, put it on the road, so 110 miles back home. You got to trust your work or be crazy one.
Very cool. Very nice. Congratulations. Okay. All right. Now we're on to Tom Booth, who's got a TF 1250. And he said he rebuilt his TF 1250 a couple years ago. I think he means the engine. but he didn't do anything with the oil pump. Now the oil pressure gauge reads 100 pounds oil pressure all the time. That's kind of weird, all the time. So I was just working with a guy in Maryland a couple weeks ago on my 3-week working trip to Washington, D.C. And we had problems with oil pressure there. And I said, just get that adjustable oil pressure valve. Moss sells it. I think Abingdon Spares sells it. Just get that and install it, and you can dial in whatever oil pressure you want. 100's pretty high, but 70's nice. 70's great, but 100's pretty high. So where are you calling from, Tom? Tom Booth, you're on.
Is there any Birmingham, Michigan?
Okay.
I'm interested to see John Dickus a minute ago. He and I are both. I'm on you, so I should be able to hear me. But Birmingham, Michigan, is there anything dangerous about having an oil pressure at 100?
Oh, your chances of leaks are
I guess
greater.
you're not. Yeah, I
but
guess you're
that's-
not hearing me.
Well, I'm hearing you.
Okay, sorry.
It shows on my screen that you're muted, and yet I can talk to you. So, so anyway, but you can, since we're having trouble with our audio here, Tom, you can call me tomorrow. I'd be more than happy to talk to you. But I think the real secret is to get that adjustable oil pressure valve from Moss or from Abingdon Spares. Although Doug Pelton probably also has it from the frame up in Phoenix, Arizona. So anyway, but because our audio is so bad, I'm going to cut off here and just invite you to call me again tomorrow. So yeah, just a lot of background. I don't know what's going on. Let's see, Mark Vitalin, what do you think about adding 1/3 of a bottle of sea foam each gas tank in the oil reservoir once a year? I have no comment at all, none. I have people on here before, and I know on the boards are, some of them extol, the virtues of sea foam. I don't suppose it does anything bad. Barney Gaylord's the only one who would tell us if anything was bad. I don't know if Barney's on tonight or not, but if it doesn't hurt anything, go for it. If you believe it makes it better, go for it, as long as it doesn't hurt anything. So, used to be Marvel Mystery Oil. Remember that? That was what you added to everything back in the day, and it made it better. Mark, are you still online?
I am.
Okay. So, hey, I've never heard of it hurting anything, and how could it hurt anything? Because they sell jillions of bottles of this stuff.
Yeah. So it wouldn't hurt seals if you left it in over the winter?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I really don't know very much about it. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, where are you calling from?
Ottawa, Canada.
Oh, all right, okay. Capital city.
Yeah. And we drive our cars up here until the first snows in December, and we have them on the road as soon as the roads are clear into March. So it's only about 2.5, 3 months my age not on the road.
You guys are the same latitude as we are, and you don't get as much snow, or it isn't as
We get a
cold?
lot of snow. We get a ton of snow, but it's like today it was 14 degrees centigrade, so it was quite warm.
You gotta speak. I'm an old dog. You gotta speak Fahrenheit. I know 30 is really, really hot. That's all I know.
Yeah, so it was about
58, 60 degrees. today.
Okay, yeah, that's about what it was here. Actually, it's warmer than about 60 here, so.
Yeah. Well, and you know how these cars love that temperature. I actually had my A out for an hour today and it ran perfectly.
It's so nice. They think they're home when it's cool and damp. Yep, that's where they were built and that's where they were born, and that's what they remember the best. Yeah, absolutely. Right, Mark. I'll look forward to seeing you next year at Peterborough.
Yeah, I think I'll come down. I'm probably have to resign myself to electrifying my car at some point.
Okay.
Well, you know what they talk about all this, emissions and things. I think at some point we're gonna have to pull our engines. So
I don't know. There's as we age, maybe someday after we are done owning our own cars and our children or our grandchildren or somebody else owns them, maybe there'll be a tax or something, but boy, I don't see gasoline going away anytime soon. No. It's a perfect fuel, except for the emissions.
Yeah. All right. Take care. Thanks, John.
Okay, thank you. John Dykeis, wintertime desiccant, expensive stuff from RV or marine stores. Isn't calcium chloride the same thing? I think calcium chloride attracts water because they put it on. So yeah, I suppose it is calcium chloride because they put that on the roads. But I don't. Desiccant is like once it's absorbed the moisture, don't you have to like put it in your oven? So you got to wait sometime when your wife's away, and then you put it all in the oven to warm it up to get rid of the moisture, and then she'll know that you've been using the oven to get rid of the water out of the desiccant, and you'll never be able to use the stove again. So anyway, that's what happened to me. It wasn't the stove, it was the dishwasher. But Tom C. Horns. What is the original position of the low and high horns for an MGB? Yeah,
right now I have there are two horns in the car now, but they're the same tone.
Oh,
and
okay.
I've got my hands on a pair of high-low. I just don't know. I want to know where the low goes versus the high. I mean, it's 50-50, I guess, but
it doesn't, of course, function has no difference.
Oh, okay.
But form, I don't know. Nor do I know anyone who would know. They'd all say, well, what difference does it make? But that's not your question. I don't know. On MGAs, they were fitted with a low note. And then if you sprung for the extra £2 or something, you got the high note horn, so you could get both notes.
I know they're clearly marked on the horns. There's an L and an H.
Right.
But I don't know.
I don't know. And I don't know anyone who does know. I love that question. One I can't answer. That's really great. I don't know. I'll tell you, somebody who Glenn's in the hospital, so from St. Petersburg, Glenn's MG service. So he's getting a heart operation tomorrow. Tomorrow's not the right day to call to ask, but call Paul Deershow. It's Sports Car Craftsman in Arvada, Colorado. I often bandy his name about because he's such a good guy for used parts, and he's got a couple hundred MGs there. So call him. He's in Denver, Colorado. Sports Car Craftsman, Paul Deershow. So where are you calling from, Tom?
Dallas, Texas.
Okay, all right. What you need is an unmolested original car. No, you need about 5 of them to make sure that they're all the same. I don't know. I just don't even know. Funny. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Okie doke. See ya. All right,
Bye.
Mark Vittlin weighs in again, and he says, I've got an LED for the ignition and turn signal lights without an electronic flasher in my MGA, and both work great. So Mark says that his LED works fine for the ignition light. So Larry Prang, let's see, but we already answered your question. Val Chapman, I wonder if peppermint toothpaste would work. And then those little rodents have nice, sharp, shiny, white little teeth. Yeah, peppermint toothpaste. Probably not peppermint candy. Wouldn't that be awful? Wouldn't that be awful to be a mouse? It's like all that candy's there, but you can't eat it because you hate the peppermint. Oh, John Dykeiss is he's our man for knowing where to buy stuff tonight. Gallons of peppermint spray available from my favorite place, Home Depot. So I can tell you a story about Home Depot. We had a guy from whose family had an MGB in San Francisco, and he assumed ownership of the car because it was time for him to have it. And family had it 20, 30 years, and it was painted orange, not a factory color at all, just orange. And so he had it shipped to us here in Grand Rapids before he took possession of it in New York, greater New York State. And he wanted it all repainted and everything. Well, then the question came, do we make it original or do we make it orange again, like it always had been for his family? And he wanted, we ended up painting it orange again. But the question is, what orange? And at one point there was some kind of, I don't want to call it iridescent or fluorescent orange, but something that seemed to sort of change colors. And Lisa said, well, we'll get some painted on a panel and then send it to you and see if you like it. He'd seen it in the car lot someplace, and we called the paint store, and the stuff was $4,000 a gallon. So when we told him that, we didn't even paint the panel. And then one Saturday, I was in the shop, and I get a call from him, and he goes, Home Depot orange. That's the orange I want it to be. Find out what the color code is for Home Depot orange. Anyway, I'm in Home Depot a lot. John Dykeiss says gallons of peppermint spray are available from Home Depot. So, all right. So Al Christie says my battery charger plugs into the cigarette lighter. Hey, how cool is that? I do it monthly on each car for a couple of days. So probably not battery charger, maybe battery tender, but anyway, that's the idea. You plug it into the cigarette lighter. Very cool, very, very nice if you still have one. When I restored my daughter's car, she said, oh, Dad, don't hook it up. So don't you want a power supply? But the little radio that she had, they had a bunch of USB cables coming out of it, and that was good enough for her. So from David's iPad, John, one of the pictures you sent on the Zoom meeting announcement showed a picture of a brake shoe setup from an MGB. You said it represented the left side rear brake, but it looks like the setup for the right. Now you're probably right. Yeah, it was the right side because the lever came out. I was just, I just did that to see if anybody was paying attention. So David, you win tonight. How's that? Sorry. So, all right, Ben Andrews, speaking of storage, here we go, another MGC owner. MGC Automatic inherently likes to dump its fluid when stored long-term. So it must mean fluid out of the automatic, so anyway, where does the auto trans leak from? I don't know. There's a huge sump gasket at the bottom. I mean, that could be the place. He asks if the weakest point is the shaft seal, but just offhand, the shaft seal lies above where the oil is when it's sitting still. So I would think out of that bottom. Ben, are you on right now?
Yeah, I meant like the shifting shaft or the Glenn you talk about.
Oh,
it's in the hospital. I was down there visiting his shop, and he just unsolicited talked about how they like to dump out of a certain spot, and obviously can't call him. I call you anyway.
Yes. Yep. I don't know. I don't know much about the automatics, but yeah, you're right. That sits right down there towards the bottom. So
yeah, I guess the converter chooses to dump everything, down to the lowest point, and then out it comes.
Okay.
So All right, I'll just deal with it.
If it's a heart operation, he ought to be back in the shop in a week. So just wait a week, and I can't believe how fast people are in and out of the hospital now. So where are you calling from, Ben?
Valparaiso, Indiana.
I know where you are, but I want everybody else to know. Yep. Okay, and we're at 8:53 p.m. So we've only got another 10 minutes here or so. And then if Doug Clark is on, we'll have our hat contest to see if he can out hat me. I've got a good hat tonight. So anyway, Greg Gregory, Winter Storage. I go to a local dog groomer and gather a large quantity of shaving and spread them throughout the car. A large quantity of shaving. Shaving what? Greg, what are you talking about? Are you here? Greg Gregory, you hear? What are
I bet
shaving?
he's probably talking about dog hair.
Okay, spread them throughout the car. Does that make the mice afraid?
Do better getting cat hair.
Well, that's a better idea.
Yeah. The only way to get the hair off a cat is to wait until it expires. So anyway,
How do you know that for sure?
Thanks, Greg. Chuck, to everybody, any modern bathroom fan will have a humidistat. So that's interesting too. So they must be, I don't know what these are, but my guess is that it either kicks on by itself when the humidity gets too high, or only turns off when the humidity has fallen to a certain point. So that would be for keeping the inside of your garage dry in these northern climates where actually it is truly dry. Bobby Galvez, I joined late. I hope this hasn't been said and addressed, but here we go. It's a great question. I'm about to change brake cylinders in the wheels and want to know if I can use a puller that goes on the rim of the drums, or should I try to find a puller that fastens to the studs for pulling? So anyway, Bobby Galvez, are you still on? Because I want to know what kind of car you're dealing with.
I am here, John. Thank you. I neglected to mention, it's for my TD.
Okay, so the rear drums will come off by themselves. If you get to spin the nut off and just tap them, just chances are they're going to slide right off the half shaft. That's the problem they have, is they work loose. There's only 6 spines, maybe 8, but I think just 6 back there. But yes, you can put a puller on the side of them, but better to put the puller on the studs. Better to put them on the studs. And remember that in the front of the car, that the nut that holds the left front hub on is a reverse thread.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Is that you can be pressing pretty hard with a cheater bar and not get it to budge, and then when it does, of course, you break the threads. So
Yeah, my concern with using those pullers that grip on the rim is I read somewhere that it can chip the rim, and then
yes,
on a TD you can't just go out and buy a new drum. So
correct. And I don't know who could balance that for you. Some you'd have to, oh my gosh, you'd have to have a personal relationship with someone with a zero resistance balancer, be able to chuck those things up and keep working with them, because you'd have to chip something off the other side. Yeah. So just go to the studs. So that's fine. That's fine.
All righty, thank you.
Hey, where are you?
I'm in Round Rock, Texas, John, just north of Austin.
Okay, hey, so Dave Brown, who's with the MGB Club, was talking about getting me down there next year for a seminar about this time next year. So just stay in touch. Well, if you're on the mailing list, you'll know. But okay, all right. Well, hey, thanks so much. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, John.
All right, Steve Illis. I have an 80B. What kind of engine oil should I use? High zinc or regular? High zinc, absolutely. And the The easiest oil to find is Valvoline VR1, Victor Romeo 1. Valvoline VR1, 2050. It's already got plenty of zinc in it. So there are other oils out there. Absolutely, Brad Penn. We used to use Brad Penn, but we had to buy it in the shop. We bought it by the case, but by cases at a time. It's not easily available, and there's some other oils out there too. But
You had mentioned some time ago, John, that if you have a catalytic converter on your MG, you didn't need to use the high zinc oil.
no, that's I was going too fast, or something got garbled in the translation. The reason that there isn't zinc in the oil anymore, or enough of zinc for us, is because modern cars have been designed around not having the zinc there, because the zinc interferes with the platinum on the catalytic converters. Therefore, the manufacturers, who are under federal mandate to make the cars run without having to change the converters for 100,000 miles, were forced to make bigger converters, meaning more platinum, meaning more expense, or convince the oil companies to get rid of as much zinc as they had in the oil. So they were successful in getting the oil companies to get rid of the zinc. So
Okay, I must have misunderstood on that. I am going to be changing oil for the winter. I will use the high zinc oil.
Absolutely.
And I also will be putting in, believe it or not, my Marvel Mystery Oil, which I do have in 5 gallon cans.
Okay, all right.
That stuff is awesome. I really like it. It works great.
Yep, that was the old advertisement where they dipped a bolt in it and the oil would go up the threads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, John.
Where are you calling from, Steve?
I'm in Macungie, Pennsylvania.
All right, okay. Jay Miller is just left at 8:33, half an hour ago. Says I have to leave, but wishes everyone a happy Veterans Day. So, and Alan the Vinegar's also timed out, and Todd Tweedy's timed out, and Val Chapman, we'll take this will be our last one. We got 50 more messages after this. Real frustrating. I wish we could just do all of them and just stay on all day. But that's why you've got to come to one of my tech sessions when I have them off site and I advertise them, but I only can move around so much. If your club is interested in having me come and do a seminar, I mean, nominally we're dealing with, I got to get covered for, my travel, and usually we charge the participants $100 a day. That's the normal amount. And you have a 2-day seminar and you get 20 people, and then it all works. The club can make a little bit of money. I make my money, and everybody comes away enthused, So anyway, if you want to do something with your club or with a private business, hey, just contact me and we can work something out. Have tools, we'll travel. Oh wait, have spanners, we'll travel, right? So anyway, Val Chapman, are you still on, Val? We're down to 100 people here. We're down to 100 people. Is Val still on?
I am.
Okay, you waited. Mike mentioned that he had replaced his gas tank. I recently did the same thing, but I've not been able to get the sending unit engaged to sync. Does that mean it doesn't work at all, or does that mean it's just wrong?
It's just wrong.
Yeah, well, that's because you bought a new sending unit, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, okay. Do you have the old one?
Yes, I do.
Did it work?
It did.
Put it back in.
It was the original from 78.
Hey, again, I go back to my same line. Any original part rebuilt is better than any new part. When you take those two apart, which there's no need to do, but there's a little triangular flange on the inside of the unit that's got a mile of resistance wire wrapped around and round and round, and a little guy goes along and reads it.
Yeah.
You look at the original one and there's just lots and lots of wire on that. You look at the new ones and the wire is few and far between. So it's just, that's all. If anything, you can change the bulb, the float.
Yeah.
Glenn Lenhard refers to them sometimes as sinks. They're not floats, they're sinks because they get perforated and then you're reading it empty all the time. But anyway, just put that one back in. The seal, the gasket, gasket and the ring, the ARA 1501 and ARA 1502. Just gob those with grease. Just gob them with grease, and then they'll slip in and out real easily. So
Okay, it's a 16-gallon tank, and what it reads is half a tank full when it's full.
Bob, what's your experience? Bob Cook's
Well,
got
I got the 16-gallon tank, the same old sending unit, and because of how deep the tank is and where the sending unit goes in, mine stays full. Well, it goes down to 3/4 of a tank after about 150 miles. And then it drops at a normal rate. It's never going to work like it did before just because of the depth of the tank. And the sending unit is made for the 14-gallon tank, not the 16-gallon. And the placement of it, I think it's the same place. So, but it shouldn't, if it only reads half full when it's full, then you just need another sending unit or put the old one in. But it's not going to read exactly right. Like today, we went on about almost 150-mile ride, and I'm not quite down to 3/4 of a tank yet. But I know I've used more gas than that. So you just get used to reading it.
Okay, thank you.
We sent a car to the shop one time, put a new sending unit in back in the day when all the stuff came from the factory, and hooked up the wires wrong, and so it was stuck on full. And the gal called me up. I've already told the story here once, but the gal called me up, and she is just complaining because she'd run out of gas. And I said, well, what did the gas gauge read? And she said, well, full. And I said, well, how long does it read full? And she said, oh, for 2 weeks. And I said, well, geez, I mean, didn't you think that maybe there might have been okay, it's my fault, but didn't you think there might have been a problem? She said, well, I just thought you did a really good tune-up and I was getting excellent mileage. So anyway, okay, hey, we're down to it. It's 9:06. I gotta flee. But is Doug Clark on? Where's Doug? Are you on tonight, Doug?
Hi, John. Yes, John, I'm here, and those aren't my dogs, but I'm here. And 179 people. What's that you got? Oh,
179. Okay. All right.
179. Let's see. What's your hat logo say?
It
I
says,
can't read it.
it says Federal Reserve Police. So,
Okay.
Okay, so
Well,
you're gonna outdo me,
Okay,
right?
I'll put my hat on. Just hold on. Hold on. My hat is especially good, John, on a rainy day when you're driving your MGB with your top down. You always want to be prepared with your always popular umbrella hat. Now, for dramatic effect, John, for dramatic effect, you put on your sunglasses. And that's what you do, man. When you're driving in a parade in your MGB,
Okay.
you wear your trusty umbrella hat. And John, I'm afraid you have been out-hatted tonight.
Yeah, except mine still works at 60 miles an hour. Yours will pull up.
That's true. Well, yeah, I had multiple wires down under my chin, and hopefully I don't turn out to be like the Flying Nun,
Okay.
So,
All right. Well, Doug and I will return to another hat off. Next session, and that next session is
Hey, John. John, how about this hat, John?
Whose hat?
Guido.
Guido. What's that
How
say?
about this hat? How about this hat?
What is it?
It's a hat.
It's a hat.
That's a South Jersey hat, John.
Okay, all right.
John, real quick before you leave,
Yeah,
My 1970, my oil filter, Napa, what was the Napa number?
it's a Napa Gold
Yeah.
1068.
N68?
No, 10, TEN, like
Oh.
1068, 2 years after the invasion.
1068. Napa Gold 1068. All right, thanks, John.
Okay.
Good seeing you, John.
Hey, Guido, it's a real pleasure. So anyway, pleasure to see everybody. You can unmute yourself. If you've got something to say. Ron Nugent, I see you on here. Thanks. Hey, you started to work on that car a little bit, Ron? Okay, great, great. Okay, all right. Guido, thank you very much.
See you later, John.
Okay,
Thanks,
Doug,
John.
that was a
John.
pleasure.
Hey, John.
Nice. Alan, yeah, how nice. Yeah. So, Mark Goldfarb, hey, pleasure. See ya.
Hey, John.
Right.
Thanks,
Take care, John. Thank
Tonight,
you.
Eric, it's real nice to see you tonight. Yep, everybody.
Get
So
back with you in 2 weeks, John, on your birthday, isn't that right? 2 weeks from
That
tonight?
is correct. 2 weeks from tonight is my birthday.
You
Yeah.
you catch up to me, you'll be 74.
I'm just right behind you, Bob.
You're closing in.
Hey, John, mine's on the 27th, so we're pretty close.
27th?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll only be 82, so that's.
Hey, I'm looking forward. I got it all planned out to 80. Beyond that, it's all frosting, So this has been the cake.
That's right.
Such a youngster.
Hey, John, I got a question about playing wheel bearings, but I'll call you tomorrow.
Okay.
That'd be a quick question.
Sure.
I went round and round with it. Well, I had a discussion with a guy at.
Well, wheel bearings
place.
do go round and round, right?
They should.
Okay.
Good night, Grandpa. Good night, John boy.
Grandpa. Yeah,
Good
we're
night,
all grandpas here. So, all right. Well, anyway, ladies, gentlemen, thank you very kindly. It's been a real pleasure. Get that website on your way to bed.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John. Good night. Good night.
Thank you, John. Look forward to it.
Cooper, see you later.
All right.
All right. David Massey, nice. Thanks. John Huas, thank you very kindly. I see your names come up all the time. Thank you very much. So, okay, here we go. I'm going to hit the end.
Pure later.